I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. All right. Happy Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sab's podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sab's podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the JB and Sabby show, and you can catch me here on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursdays. What is going on, guys? I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, fam. We have a big show for you tonight. First and foremost, I do want to let you know the theme. Tonight's theme is Unleash the Kraken, because every one of these stories tonight is like, and I don't know if everybody has seen that movie, but Unleash the Kraken is like, the saying. And I think you'll see that when we get into tonight's stories, ladies and gents. Really quickly, though, I do want to go ahead and give a shout out to Sabby patrons. Thank you guys so much for your support. I really do appreciate you, fam. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories, folks. Ultimate, we have Sabinators. Don't forget about those Sabsters. I heard they're cool as well. We have Sabbies in the house too. And we also have members. All of their names are listed here. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. And I think we have a new Sabby patron. Yes, we do. Over here, we call them newbies. Let's give it up for Chilly Willy. I like that name. Chilly Willy. Chilly Willy. Do 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 do. Chilly Willy. Thank you. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate your support, ladies and gents. And we have quite a bit to get into tonight. I'm telling you, like, when I was picking through stories, I was like, oh my gosh, there were so many stories, so much stuff that happened this weekend. And I was like, I don't know, 1 or 2 of these may have to wait for Tuesday's live stream, but a lot is going down, folks. Let's go ahead and show you the thumbnail so you can see what we are discussing tonight. Quite an interesting weekend. Holy smokes. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, Professor Richard Wolff, we have that interview. That's a big one. We also have, this is interesting, Marjorie Taylor Greene is being targeted, and she is being very vocal about it. Who is coming after her, ladies and gents? And some people have a feeling that part of this could be karma. You'll see what I mean when we get to that story as well. We're also discussing Katie Halper checks Prageru. This was phenomenal. Phenomenal. Great job there by Katie Halper. She really took out that dude. We're going to get into all of that. We're also going to discuss Fat Joe is blamed. Fat Joe the rapper. Why are people mad at him? What does this have to do with BET and the news that they announced? And a lot of people are pointing their fingers at Fat Joe. So we'll get into that. He's smiling in that picture, but I don't think he's smiling now. And last but not least, Alan Dershowitz is playing the victim. Oh, yes. He is proceeding with a lawsuit, and this all has to involve pierogies over a pierogi. That's right, ladies and gents. Forever the victim, Alan Dershowitz. Yes. Yes, indeed. But first and foremost, ladies and gents, if you haven't had a chance to do so, smash that like button. Thank you. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share, just like a Care Bear. And we will go ahead and I think get started with the interview with Professor Richard Wolff. Let me give a couple shout outs to people in the chat first and foremost. Fam. Shout out to Miguel, says, peace. What's up? Greetings, Orphelia says, oh, this is going to be a good one. I swear, Sabby agreeing with MTG, Candace Owens, and Tucker in 2025 was not something I saw coming. Truth is truth, and nothing but the truth is what will save us. I will say I agree with them on Israel, not on most things, but your point's well taken. Shout out to Blockbuster, says, hi. Greetings, Lauren says, free Palestine. Shout out to Randy, says, extra love for giving me a bonus dose of Professor Wolff Sabby. You are welcome. Greetings, Matthew sends, Matthew is sending muscle. Shout out to James, says, greetings from Anchorage, Alaska. Well, what's up, James? I don't know too many people in Alaska. I have one high school classmate that lives in Alaska. But other than that, I don't know many there. Greetings. Hannah says, Wolff is in the house. Shout out to Karina, says, free Palestine. Greetings. Kawan says, I wonder, did you watch Nicholas Flint has his show on Friday about Tucker Carlson? It was pretty good. You should have Nick on your show. I think you mean Sabby. Nicholas Flint. I have not seen that. I could check it out. Shout out to Answers Question, says, yay, bring on the Wolff. Shout out to my comrade JB, says, hello, Sabs and everyone. One thing that enlightened me was when Professor Wolff said in another show that the majority of global South nations are experiencing deflation while we're experiencing inflation. Yeah, that's true. Shout out to Fron Cat, says, hi, Sabby. Looking forward to this show. Greetings, Crom, sends peace and love. Shout out to Lee, says, greetings from West Midlands of England. We got England in the house. What is up to the UK? Greetings, Black Rhino, says, good Sunday, Sabby. And shout out to Kimi, says, let's go. Kimi. I think it's Kimi. Yeah, I think I mispronounced his name before. I think it's Kimi. Yeah. All right, ladies and gents. So Professor Richard Wolff, we had a great conversation. This was earlier in the day. So obviously I didn't go live with this because it was like early, but we do have it for you here. Professor Richard Wolff had a lot to say here, not just about the economy, but also about geopolitics and this race that's happening in New York City. Let's go ahead and get into it, fam. Uh-oh, what did I do? Let's go back. I did something. I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, there we go. Okie dokie. Here we go. Sabby Sabs podcast. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. My special guest today is economist Professor Richard Wolff. You've seen him here before. Welcome back, Professor Wolff.
Glad to be here, Sabrina, and glad to be talking with you.
So the housing market is back in the news again. There are reports that economists are seeing 2008 numbers once again. But the big story here is Gen Z and millennials. And this is something that we've been focusing on. I just want to share this here. This article that was published by Fortune magazine said that Gen Z and millennials can't afford to buy a house, and it shows. The number of first-time home buyers is half the historical norm. So this is a big one here that we've been focusing on. I went through the home buying process during the pandemic. I know how stressful it can be. And I've often told my audience that if it wasn't for those really low interest rates during that time and help from my parents, I don't know if I would have been able to do it. I definitely don't think I would be able to do it today. What is happening here? Should people be concerned? Are we seeing 08 numbers again?
Yes, I think the short answer to your very important question is yes. We are in a very serious economic decline, and we live in a country that is going through that, but is responding to it, if I can borrow a term from psychology, by what we call denial, by a massive pretense that something which is admittedly bad news and is scary, we make it go away by pretending it's not there. It is something we notice in children, and you're supposed to outgrow that kind of tendency. I remember when my little daughter first encountered a scary dog. She was about 3, and the dog was barking, and it was near us. So she put her little fingers in front of her eyes and felt much better because she couldn't see the dog. And in her little 3-year-old mind, if she couldn't see it, it wasn't there. You know, and if you're 3, that's okay, right? You're learning, you're growing up. But by the time you're 6 or 7, you figured out that whether your hands are there or not, the dog is the dog, and he's still there. We're a nation that's becoming childish a little bit. Let me explain. Home prices for first-time home buyers make a house unaffordable. The prices have gone crazy. On the one hand, the price of the home. On the second hand, the price of borrowing a mortgage, which is how most people buy homes if they're able to do it. The same is true of rents. They're at all-time highs. And in no way have the wages and salaries of the vast majority of Americans kept up with the prices of housing. So you've got a very classic situation that you are pricing a majority of the people out of the possibility of owning their own home or even of renting adequate space. That's why we have these strange other numbers which show that a dangerous level of people's income having to go to pay for housing. If they're renting, for example, leaving insufficient money for all the rest of the things you need in life above and beyond where you live. And let's remember that number that first-time home buyers are less able to afford a home today. It was not this bad unless you go back to 1995, which is 30 years ago. I want to remind people, over those 30 years, the population of this country has gone up, meaning that there would be more first-time home buyers in a successful economy would be seeing more because more people are in that situation. Instead, we see less over these 30 years. That tells you something that can only be summarized in this way. One of the basic ways you judge an economy, any economy, is how well does it provide the basics, excuse me, the basics, food, clothing, and shelter. And the reality is, as your data in the clip you just showed us illustrates, is we live in an economy which is failing to provide adequate housing for millions and millions of its people. And yeah, they're not all wandering around the streets homeless, although we have a serious homeless problem in this country. But what they are doing is living in crowded circumstances that are not of their choosing. You don't have to be an advanced degree holder in psychology to know that if too many of us are living too close together, even if we're in the same family, or maybe because of it, we get on each other's nerves. In other words, it has serious consequences if you don't give people proper housing. I mean, it is a very serious sign. Now, my last point, there is an area where housing is being produced in record amounts around the country, but it's housing that we call high-end housing. It's the housing that's expensive. It's the housing that is built, to be blunt, for rich people who can afford to pay 7% mortgage, who can afford to pay elevated rents or buy expensive homes. And we know the numbers. 20% of our people, 20, have enough money to be in that area where they can buy homes and they can trade up if they have the opportunity. But for 80% of our people, the overwhelming majority, this is an economic system now that is failing to provide food, clothing, and shelter, or at least the shelter part of it. And there is no sign, none, that this situation is going to get much better anytime soon.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Another thing that we see happening, in particular here in the Boston area, Massachusetts, is that more younger people are leaving the city and moving out to the suburbs where it's more affordable to rent, or they're moving to other states. There was an article that was published here last year encouraging young college students, college graduates, to leave Massachusetts and to move to Michigan if they want to buy a home. The only concern that I have with that is that if people start to flood Michigan, wouldn't the cost of living start to increase in Michigan as well? I feel like that's a temporary solution to tell people to move to these more affordable states or states that are cheaper. You also have to have jobs available in those states for everybody as well.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. That is not a solution. What that is an attempt to distract people from the problem by giving them this quickie idea. Oh, why don't you go to where housing is cheaper? You know, my answer to that is, why don't we get the employers of this country to pay us the appropriate wages and salaries? Then we wouldn't have to yank our family out of Massachusetts and go 1,000 miles west to a Michigan, which has serious unemployment problems that you correctly point to, that has serious problems because when you have an economic decline, the way Michigan has, for example, because the automobile industry is no longer dominated by the United States. And all of those tariffs that you hear Mr. Trump talk about every day are not going to bring car business back to this country. General Motors now sells more cars in China than it does in the United States. And General Motors knows its future is China, not the United States. And they've made the adjustment. Americans may still like to demonize China or to say bad things about it, but I can assure you the business community is eager to please the Chinese so they have access to what is the fastest and biggest growing market in the world, which is not the United States. Going to Michigan, therefore, no one's going to do that. The jobs aren't going to come back. And yeah, you can get a cheaper home, no question about it. By the way, that's true for the whole Midwest. That's true from Minnesota and Wisconsin in the north, all the way down, Kansas, Nebraska, Missouri, all of those places, housing is cheaper. But here's the important insight you just gave us. It's cheaper for a reason. Nobody is buying housing there. Their economies are in such trouble that the people trying to sell a house have to bring it down because there's no buyers. To tell Massachusetts people to go to Michigan is telling them, go because the housing is cheaper, and please don't pay attention to why that's the case, because if you do, you'll discover you're being asked to move to a part of the country where the economic situation is considerably worse than it is in Massachusetts. The per capita income of Massachusetts is much higher than that in the Midwest. In other words, it's a better functioning economy, and it's really a cheap shot on people to tell them that if the economy is failing, it's your job to take the enormous risk. I've been through several movings. I'm married, I have a wife, I have 2 children. I know what it does to a family to move. I know what it does to an individual. That's one of the biggest traumatic events of a lifetime. You will remember your moves better than you remember many other things in your own life. Don't tell people to move if the economic system isn't delivering what it should. Put your critical thinking on and try to make the economy better. Change it so it does deliver what it ought to deliver. That's the message that these statistics, I think, ought to convey to people who confront them.
And speaking of wages, there has been a big push over the years for a $15 minimum wage. But then I was introduced to this report called Out of Reach. Now, this report is published every year in July, and they actually show what you need to make in each state to afford a 2-bedroom rental. One of the things I found very not so shocking, of course, is California is number one. They have the highest housing wage. According to the Out of Reach report, they say that you need to make $49.61 an hour to afford a 2-bedroom rental. And if you're working minimum wage or paid minimum wage, you have to work 120 hours a week to afford a 2-bedroom rental. And a lot of people look at this map and they say, well, it's mainly the blue states, but then you see Florida, and this is what I talked about with the influx of people moving from states like Massachusetts to Florida. Florida has become more expensive over time. They're now the 9th highest housing wage. But the point is that the $15 minimum wage at this point, I don't think, according to the Out of Reach report, isn't enough for people to live off of. Based on or adjusting for inflation, what would you say the minimum wage should be in 2025?
Well, you're talking to a person who takes all of this very, very, very seriously. I mean, a $15 minimum wage is being condemned to live a life of serious economic problems haunting you every day of your life. You cannot eat, drink, wear appropriate clothing, live in a decent home on $15 an hour. And by the way, I invite you to go to any state in the union and ask around, find the people that are living on $15 an hour, and then ask them if they would be so kind as to tell you what they had for breakfast, show you the outfits they wear, show you the apartment or the house where they live, and the conditions. And you would know right away, it wouldn't take you very long at all, that you don't want to live in those conditions. You don't want to have a family in those conditions. You don't want to live in the neighborhoods where people earning that kind of money live. And we kind of all know that. And yet we want to pretend that because there are employers who pay, and this is the truth, lower than that. I want to remind everyone that the federal government has, and has had for almost a century now, a federal minimum wage. Was passed in 1938 by the United States Congress and the President Roosevelt at that time. Today, that federal minimum wage, and believe me, I'm just a messenger, I didn't cause what I'm about to tell you, is $7.25 per hour. That's right. One of the lowest minimum wages in the world exists in one of the richest countries in the world, which tells you more than anything I can otherwise tell you. The richest country in the world has one of the lowest minimum wages. When was the last time the minimum wage was raised at the federal level? Answer, 2009. Okay, here we are, 15 years and counting. Over those 15 years, prices went up in America every year, sometimes only 1 or 2%, sometimes 9 or 10%. But in every one of those 15 years, as the cost of everything went up, what we paid the minimum wage stayed the same. We were savage to the poorest among us. I don't know what kind of religion or morals or ethics you all take seriously, But if they're anything like those I think we're supposed to have in our minds, there is no excuse for what we do in this country. That's why, by the way, half the states of the Union, half of them, have higher minimum wages passed by law in those states than the federal government does. For example, there are, I don't know the last number, time I counted, I would say there are 6, 7, 8 states who already have minimum wages above $15 an hour in order to begin to recognize the truth of what I'm saying, which is it is outrageous. It ought to be at least twice that. Maybe if we start at $30 an hour, we could address the 15 years of an unchanged federal minimum wage. By the way, there are states in this country where they observe the $7.25. Yes, they are. And if you wanted to draw a map of the states where Mr. Trump is the most popular, and then the states where the minimum wage is the lowest, you'll discover that in general, it's the same states. It's an amazing situation that, again, has no justification. Of course, those people can't afford a 2-bedroom apartment unless they're sharing it with 3 other families, which is what millions of people do.
That's right.
It is a scandal. I mean, there's no polite word for me to use. I mean, I don't want to embarrass you or anybody watching or listening, but the truth of it is a scandal. It's an immoral way of treating our fellow citizens. By the way, it has nothing to do with immigrants. If anything, the immigrant condition is even worse, which is why punishing the immigrants by deporting them and having those ICE people do their horrible behavior on these poor people makes you shake your head. What is the country coming to?
It's really interesting. Another concern that people are raising with these jobs, this new jobs report that was released shows that the unemployment rate is increasing for Black Americans. In particular, 300,000 Black women just lost their jobs. I believe a big portion of that comes from the cuts from those federal jobs that Donald Trump made, which I tried to warn people about. There's that. There's also the rise of AI that's making people pause. Some of the retail stores near me that I've gone into, I notice I see less sales associates and more self-checkouts. So there's a number of things that are happening where jobs are also being cut. The unemployment rate is continuing to increase, particularly with Black employees. But then also there's the concern of AI. Some of these companies are automating some of the jobs that people used to do. And it makes people wonder what will be our role like in the future if AI continues to increase and the federal government continues to cut jobs. What is going to be our role? And I always pivot back to the states, right? Like, I feel like this is where the states should be able to jump in if they can. Some of those people that had those federal jobs, I would hope that they would be eligible for state jobs, although I know the state can be really tricky with employment. But then also, I think it brings back this question. If the states were to jump in, this is where I would advocate for a public bank, because I feel like a lot of people just don't know that, like North Dakota, for example, they have the Bank of North Dakota, which is a public bank. From what I read, it said that because they had that public bank, that they didn't suffer as badly as other states during the 2008 housing crisis. So I wish that more states would push for and advocate for having a public bank, something that can, because what we're seeing, Professor Wolff, is the federal government keeps kicking everything back to the states.
Yeah, I know a great deal. I've studied the Bank of North Dakota. You are quite right. A little history might help people understand it. It's over 100 years old. It was started at the beginning of the 20th century in that state. And the idea was We, the people of North Dakota, which is largely, it's a relatively poor state. It's very agricultural. It doesn't have much industry and so on. It's very cold there in the winter. It's right up against Canada and so forth. They said we don't want to be a minor issue for some big New York bank or some big California bank. We want to have a bank that is familiar with the conditions here in North Dakota. We want a bank that will help us, understand us, that is part of our community. And so they developed a bank which was owned and operated by the state, not a private bank. So for most of people watching this program, you don't have that where you live. The people of North Dakota, U.S. citizens, just like you and me, they have it. And here's how it works. When they pay taxes to the government, the state government in North Dakota, well, when those taxes are more than what the government needs to keep the roads open and run the schools and all the rest, go back into the general fund, and they go into the bank. That is, if I misspoke, if the bank makes extra money, it gives it to the government because it's part of the government, which means they don't have to raise taxes on their people if the bank is making money, because when the bank makes money, that's profit that flows into the government of North Dakota. And of course, when hard times hit, these are North Dakotans. They're talking to their neighbors who have a mortgage for their home, or they're talking to their local small businesses who have loans at the Bank of North Dakota. So successful has it been that over the last 100+ years of its existence, despite the effort of private big banks in America to get rid of this one example. Let me remind everyone, we have 50 states in the United States. Only one has a public bank. They've kept the others from doing it. But despite Republicans and Democrats who occasionally tried to do what the big banks wanted, up rose the people of North Dakota, businessmen and women, working class people, farmers, and they all said, we want the public bank. And that's why it's there now. Very successful. And it is something missing in other states, which is why there are efforts. I have worked with several of them in many parts of the United States, both at the state level and at the city level, to develop public banks that would be more concerned with maintaining the economic well-being of everyone than in serving just the biggest and richest employers, which is what private banks mostly do. So it is very important to understand that we live in an economic system that puts the priority on private wealth and private enterprise and believes that this is the royal magical road to prosperity. Well, let me tell you something. It may be for that 20% that we spoke about before, but for the majority of people, it is not working out very well. And that's why we have to say what we have to say about housing, about wages, and we could go on. I have been talking in recent weeks about the inflation that is entering into our food chain. The grocery prices that are already a problem for millions of American families are about to get worse. And that's a result of the tariffs. You know, Mr. Trump talks about the tariffs doing a wonderful thing. Well, let me tell you a little quick story. When I get up in the morning, I do what I think many Americans do. I need a cup of coffee to get going, and I often put either milk or sugar in my coffee. Okay, we don't produce coffee in the United States. Not a significant amount, a little bit in Louisiana, a little bit in Hawaii, but basically the coffee we all drink is imported. and is now being subject to a tariff tax, which is going to raise the price of our coffee. Well, I got also more news for you. We don't produce the sugar the sugarcane sugar. We import that. So that'll be affected by the tariff, which means the coffee and the sugar that we all, or many of us, start our day with is going to be whacked with increases in prices. You're going to see your local coffee shop, or if you buy your coffee in the coffee bean form, all of these prices are going up. And it's another failure of this economic system. Now a failure added to the housing failure and the wage failure, you're going to get a grocery failure. We are moving as a nation in a direction that is going to make the inadequacy of our economic system issue number one on everyone's mind in a matter now of weeks and months.
Yeah, it's a big concern. And you talked about the tariffs. President Lula from Brazil is making a push for de-dollarization. Brazil is a part of BRICS, and this conversation has been brought up before by President Lula, but he seems adamant on trying to make this happen. And I think what some people may not understand is part of the reason is because the US government can sanction these companies, these countries, right? So if they were to break away from the US dollar, that would prevent that from happening. The US wouldn't be able to sanction them for whatever reason. But if countries start moving away from the dollar, that would greatly impact all of us here. And it's just, and these are the kind of things I think, like, globally, people just need to pay attention to what's happening, because a lot of times I hear people say that they just focus on what's happening right here. They don't care about what's happening abroad, but you should, especially when it comes to the economy. If the BRICS countries, or let's just say even Brazil, if they start to move away from the dollar and they develop their own currency or go with a different one, that is greatly going to impact us, I believe, partially because of trade, but then almost to the point where the dollar won't be worth anything.
That's right. Look, Mr. Lula has a bit more courage than a lot of political leaders, and so he says things that are being thought by a lot of them, but they're diplomatic in the sense of softening what they say relative to what they believe. Mr. Lula is like that too, but Mr. Trump, you should all know, has been going after Mr. Lula with much more intensity than he has gone after many other global leaders. So you have there the clash of two people who are mad at each other. Over the last 2 months, Mr. Trump has particularly hit Brazil with high tariffs and threats of even higher ones, and has used as one of his concerns as to why he's doing that, he wants Mr. Lula to stop the prosecution of the previous leader of Brazil, a man named Bolsonaro, who is being put to trial because he's accused of major crimes. This is what we used to call interfering in the internal affairs of another country. It is not appropriate for the leader of the United States to mix into the internal political differences. We had a major struggle in this country over recent years when there was an accusation made that another country, Russia, might have interfered in the elections for president here in the United States. We were told by the people who were concerned how outrageous it would be for another country to interfere. And here we are doing it. Mr. Lula is not pleased, since he's the current president, and he was jailed by Mr. Bolsonaro when Mr. Bolsonaro was the president. But here's the reason you need to pay attention, just to illustrate the wisdom Sabrina, of what you said. Let's go back to coffee. Brazil is, I believe, the largest provider of coffee to the United States. If you put a heavy tariff on coffee, it's going to mean that, let's say, it costs $10 a pound to buy Brazilian coffee. If Mr. Trump hits them with a 25% or a 50% tariff, you're going to have to pay $1 to get Brazil to send the coffee and then pay Trump 25 or 50 cents more, right, per dollar of the cost of your coffee because of the tariff, which means the price of your latte next week is going to go up a lot. So yeah, you have to pay attention, because if you pick up a latte on the way to work and you do it many days a week, you're going to be spending big bucks on coffee that you didn't have to do before. And if the BRICS countries decide, and they've been discussing this for years, to move away from reliance on the dollar precisely because the American president is so aggressive, to their hurt, to their detriment, yes, it will make an enormous difference. And let me summarize real quickly why. Brazil is a leading member of the BRICS nation. BRICS meaning BRICS, the first initial of the names Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. But those 5 countries have now been joined by a dozen more, actually more than that. But if you add up right now the population of the BRICS countries in the world we live in, the planet we inhabit, it's already well over half the people of this planet live in those countries. What's the percentage of the world's population that lives in the United States? 4.5%. What are we doing as a nation when we try to control, to dominate, to interfere in, to hit with economic weapons a population many, many times bigger than us? You know, in the long run, that isn't just a failed idea, that's downright stupid. And we are in a place in our country where we're having economic difficulties, and we have a leader who's trying to make the rest of the world pay for our economic difficulties, and we wonder that they're not enthusiastic about it. They want to free themselves from being vulnerable to a powerful country like ours, saying the rest of the world has to pay taxes to us, not just to their own country, but to us in some way. We're going to sanction them and punish them and this and that. You're going to see a reaction over the years ahead for which the American people are not ready, because they don't understand, because they don't want to face what is in fact going on. Mr. Lula speaks the way he does because he knows that the majority of the people on this planet are cheering him on. They're not cheering Mr. Trump, not at all. But they are cheering the resistance to Mr. Trump from people like the President Lula, which is his nickname. Da Silva is his name, from Brazil. And Americans pay no attention to that, but they do so at their own peril.
Yeah, the West is very small when you compare it to the rest of the world. And even economically, when we talk about where money is going, all of the money that the US government is giving to Israel, it's astonishing. And not just the 3.8 billion, but we found out, after October 7th, we all started doing our own digging. I found out that Boston was sending 10 million to Israel, but we have people on the street here. We have homeless people here. We have people that can't afford housing, but they're sending 10 million to Israel. And the rest of the world has really turned on Israel. Germany had just made the announcement that they're going to suspend arms to Israel, even though I would say they were the second most supplier of those weapons after the United States. But economically, even some of the Trump supporters are now saying they don't want their money going to Israel. So I think that Donald Trump has a big problem, because this is the first time I've seen where even some of the MAGA base is not happy with where the money is going. They're not happy with the starvation in Gaza. Like the numbers are showing it, the polls are showing. And I think that Trump did not expect this.
Yeah, it is the horror of what is going on in Israel, what they've done to the people of Gaza. We're going to be talking about that. Well, let me give you an example. This week was the 80th anniversary of the dropping of the atomic bomb on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 80 years ago, that happened. It is the only time in the history of the human race that nuclear weapons were used by one country against the citizens of another country. And we, the Americans, bear the guilt of having done that, of having taken that extraordinary step that no other country ever took. And so there were celebrations around the world, not so much in the United States, which you can kind of understand because it's hard for Americans to look at the pictures that you can see of what those atomic bombs did. But we will never forget that. That's why we see celebrations around the world. Well, the world is not going to forget what Israel did in Gaza. It is a stain upon the history and the reputation of Israel. And because of the peculiar relationship between Israel as a country and Jewish people all over the world, it's going to be a burden for those Jewish people to carry. Not that they need it, but they will have no choice because of the actions of Mr. Netanyahu and the people of his government. And yes, Americans are simply among those people around the world that are horrified. Long ago, the government in Ireland recognized the Palestinians as a separate people and broke their relationships with Israel. Spain has done it. We recently saw that the French are about to do it. Even the British are talking about it. The only country of any significance that supports Israel at this point, given what it has done and is doing, is the United States. And of course, thoughtful people across the political spectrum, even among MAGA folks, yes, there is the question, and it's been there a while. Is this a smart move to connect the United States with something that every Arab person and every Muslim person around the world sees as a horrific assault on their co-religionists, the people that they share a religious belief with? I mean, try to turn this around and imagine if it was happening in an Islamic country to Christians, what kind of talk there would be, what kind of, let yourself for a minute think like that, and you would understand that this looks to the whole world, what the United States is doing and what Israel is doing, as the last desperate gasps of white colonialism trying to control what we now call the global South. And we live at the end of a century of anti-colonialism. Those little countries in Europe don't control anything anymore. They once thought they controlled the whole world. The British like to say the sun never sets on the British Empire because we have so much land in so many places that the sun is always up somewhere. And they had such an empire, and they ripped that empire off, And eventually that empire told the British, go home. And that's why they don't control India and they don't control Africa the way they once did. Israel and the United States are efforts to keep settler colonialism alive. They don't have domestic opposition here because we genocidally killed off the indigenous population of this country when the Europeans came. Israel is trying to do that also to the Palestinians. It's not going to work. However long it takes, the resistance of the people of Gaza, what they have endured and stayed there, is absolute. We will be wondering and trying to understand not only why the Israelis could and did do what they did, but where did the strength come from in the Palestinian people, given what they have suffered there? It's absolutely extraordinary, and it will not continue much longer.
And that brings me to Zoran Mandami, who is polling very well right now. If the election was today for NYC mayor, he would win. It's not even close between him and Andrew Cuomo, and Eric Adams has fallen far down on the polling list. Zoran Mandami, during the debate, said when he was asked where he could go or where's the first place he would go as mayor, when everyone else said Israel, he said he wouldn't go anywhere because he said he wants to focus on helping people in New York City. It has just been announced recently that apparently Donald Trump has gotten involved in this race. He has contacted Andrew Cuomo, and it's very clear to me that they're trying to do something. They're trying to make it so that he does not become mayor of New York City. Now, I have some of my own concerns with Zoran. I think some of the things that he wants to do, like the free buses, which can be done despite what people say, I think he would have to get the approval of Governor Hochul. I don't think she's going to approve some of those things. And the other thing is that I do worry is we do have this fear that he may become like another AOC, right? Like he's saying all the good things now, but if he were to win, he may go alongside Democrat establishment. So there is that concern. That being said, in this particular race, there isn't a third party candidate that is running, and the independents aren't actually independent, if we want to be real here. I really believe Zoran Mandami is going to win this unless Donald Trump and Andrew Cuomo pull something up their sleeves. But what are you hearing from people in New York? Because another poll also shows the majority of Jewish voters under the age of 45 are supporting Zoran, not Andrew Cuomo. I think this is a big failure for Andrew Cuomo. I don't understand why he's still in this race after he lost the Democrat primary. But I think that Zoran can actually win this. And I think, again, this shows the shift, the geopolitics shift here of people moving away from what Israel is doing and focusing on more so aligning with the resistance.
Yeah, I live and work here in Manhattan. So I have followed Zoran Mandami's efforts, his campaign from the beginning. And here's how it looks to me as I talk to the people I work with and live among here in Manhattan, where I live. The answer to the question that I come up with most often is this. And I'm quoting what people say to me, we are sick and tired of the old established political options that are given to us every election, the Republican and the Democrat. We don't see a big difference between them. They all make promises, most of which they don't abide by once they get elected. They keep the status quo. They keep the system running the way it has been running, but that's the problem. We believe it has to change. For example, rents here in Manhattan are ridiculous. Even in large parts of Brooklyn, they are way beyond what anybody can afford. I mean, it's out of control. And the prices of food, New York was always an expensive city, but now it is kind of crazy. People use that kind of language. And so it needs somebody to come in and really deal with that. And there's no reason to expect, Cuomo to do that. Andrew Cuomo. He didn't do it when he was governor. He didn't. Nothing. There's nothing. He's another one of the Democrats. We can expect him to do what he does. That he also behaves inappropriately with women, that isn't very surprising either, and doesn't make him attractive at all. I mean, look at his story. It's kind of amazing that he would run again, given what he didn't do and given what he did do. What a combination. The only hope Mr. Cuomo ever had was to somehow say, this Mondani character is really scary. You wouldn't want to vote for that. Vote for me, because I may not do you any good, but I'm not scary. I'm the male equivalent of Governor Hochul, who, after all, was chosen by Cuomo to be his running mate, which is why she became the governor when he had to step down, because he said and touched women and all the rest that we know about. So Mr. Cuomo's problem is he's the same old, same old. And Zoran is something very different. And he's different even before you get to the particulars of what he's proposing. He's different because he's an attractive young man. He is a Muslim. He is, not all that white, blah, blah. He's telling you right away before he opens his mouth, I'm different from what you're normally used to having a major position. It's already surprising that he could be in the state legislature. That tells you at least that he got support in the area of Queens where he comes from. But running for mayor, he had to appeal to lots of people. And he did. And he didn't have to, become pro-Israel to do it. The Jewish community in this country is split, just like it is in many other parts of the world. And the majority are not supportive of what Mr. Netanyahu is doing in Gaza. That may not be known to many people, but it is the truth. I know that directly. So he was able to say, I'm not going to get torn away, just like I'm not going to get fooled by being asked what country I'm going to visit. My job is to be the mayor of New York. Now, having said that, I also think he will win. I don't think the issue is Mr. Cuomo. I think the issue is this. How many billionaires, how many big businesses are going to contribute how much money to Mr. Cuomo or whoever else they might pick up and support? Our elections are heavily shaped by the money. That's why so much money is raised and spent on them. And so Mr. Mamdani's problem will there be a coming together of enough money to give to whoever's running against him to put out advertising that makes him look bad with true or false accusations? We won't know until the time is over, right? We're talking between now and early November, and that's not very long. And will they have enough money to smear him and to elevate somebody else like Cuomo? To work with Cuomo means they have their work cut out for him, because nobody really wants him very much beyond, I don't know, Staten Island. There's nothing there for him. His career is over by his own doing. If I may, about the public transportation. In my lifetime, I have visited quite a few cities in Europe where this was already done, and done very successfully for many years. I remember in Hungary, in Budapest, one of the great cities of Eastern Europe, they for many years had what they called the honor system. There was a price to pay for getting on the subway or the bus, but there was no one taking the money. It was up to you when you went by the little machine to drop the coin or whatever you had in there. And you were asked to drop a certain amount, but if you didn't have it, you didn't. If you had half of it, you put that in the machine. And that's how they did it. And nobody was there to catch you. If you didn't put money in, the only thing that might happen is that another rider on the bus would come up to you and say, "Look, citizen, it is wonderful that we don't have to pay. Sometimes we can't afford it. But if we all don't pay, we won't have it. So fine this time, but be a good citizen. Make up for it when you've got the cash." And you know, it was a very sophisticated way. I don't know if the city planned it, but that's how they were able to afford to run the city. And others have proposed it and have tried it. In many cities, for example, in Europe, they will make the public transportation system free on weekends. So they go after people, Monday to Friday, but Saturday and Sunday, and it could be a way for Mr. Mamdani to show quickly, I'm going to do things that are good for average people. For rich people, it doesn't matter whether they pay or they don't pay on the subway. That's what being rich means. But for those who aren't rich, it matters. And if you can take your kids to Coney Island on the weekend and you don't have to pay a subway fare to go out there, it adds up. It adds up. Or, and then there are other ways for him to make up that kind of revenue. It can be done, and it's important symbolically not to fall in to the notion, oh, he can't do that. He has to get the legislature to agree. Well, that's not the problem many Americans think it is. Don't be caught in the past. In the past, anybody who said something like that, free transportation, would be shot down. We will never do that in the legislature, or the governor will never do it. But we're in a different time. Nobody expected Mr. Mamdani to walk away with this election. That tells every politician something. Be very careful. You don't want to get on the wrong side of whatever it is that's putting Mr. Mamdani into office. So if he gets to be the mayor and he proposes that buses and subways be cheap, half the price or whatever, free, guess what? I would say to you, if I were a fly on the wall, if you were a fly on the wall in the office of Governor Hochul, she's going to have advisors, and they're going to say to her, you better not veto what he's doing. Because if you do that, all the voters of New York who voted for him are going to be looking to vote against you. Because he was prepared to do something. He was in a position to do it. You said no. That may make you popular among the rich, but it won't make you popular among the people who put Mr. Mamdani in office. And then they will remind the Governor Hochul that in this state of New York, it's the city of New York that delivers state jobs to Democrats, because the rest of the state doesn't do that. And she's going to have to think long and hard. She may be opposed to it, but that's not the issue. You want to hold on to your job, Governor Hochul? Be very careful as Mr. Mamdani, as mayor, comes up with proposals. Do you really want to be hung out there as the one standing in the way of free public transportation, of a rent control that really works. It's you don't want that. Your career will come to a crashing end, and soon if you do. She cannot avoid that kind of it. She may not go with that advice, but if she ever were to ask me, based on what I know as a resident and a voter for Mandami and for her, I would tell her, don't do that. And it wouldn't just be because I like what Mandani does. I do, but I wouldn't be for that reason. I would be, your career is over if you become known as the political obstacle that prevented Mandani from doing what the people voted for him to do. That's a very powerful position for Mr. Mandani. And if I were writing his, I'm not, but if I were writing his public relations, I'd be coming down hard on just that idea.
Well said. Thank you so much, Professor Wolff.
Well, it's my pleasure. And let me compliment you on the air. Having programs like yours that bring these issues out, that put this stuff out there for the public to think about and reflect on, is an enormously important public service that you perform. And I just want to thank you on behalf of all the people that benefit from your doing that.
All right, ladies and gents, that was Professor Richard Wolff. I got to check something here. I have a socket issue. Looks like I have to reconnect to something because I don't know what I did. Hope you learned a little bit there from Professor Richard Wolff. I feel like I always learn something new from his conversations. We'll clip that for you as well, so you guys can have just the clip of that. If you are just joining, the theme tonight is Unleash the Kraken, and we're getting to the story with Marjorie Taylor Greene, which is absolutely insane because I don't know, some people are telling me, well, Sabby, it's karma, considering what she said, what she did, etc. At the end of 2023, going into 2024. Could be karma. I don't know. There's a lot that is coming out, ladies and gents. We'll get into that story in just a second. Let's go ahead and say hello to the super chat peeps. Shout out to jazz legend Walter Beasley says, what's poppin'? What's going on, Walter? Thank you so much. Thank you, a kid. Sabby, Professor Wolff, without a movement, without tangible demands and a revolution by the 99%, there will be no changes for everyday folks in America. Your thought. This is what something that me and Eric talk about a lot with 11 demands. That is the thing. Like, there needs to be a movement. I think Occupy was headed in the right direction before Obama tried to come and, he had to find a way to shut that down. But I think Occupy was heading in the right direction. I really do. Thank you, Naya. In 45 years, productivity went up 86% with 32% for wages. Yeah, and people have been working harder and they're being paid less than like our parents and our grandparents when you adjust for inflation. Melanie says Jordan from Status Quo did a video on how unemployment is at depression levels, 25%, then around 23%, now and climbing. I believe it. Like, the tricky thing too about unemployment is that, let's say you live with your parents, but you don't have a job, you may not be counted in that statistic. So I always say the unemployment rate is higher than what the numbers reveal, because if you're an adult, but let's say you lost your job and you had to move in with your parents or whatever, you may not be counted in that data. So that's just something to keep in mind. Oh, what's going on, Grace? Grace says, can't wait to see you at Icarus Fest, Sabby Sabs, sending lots of love from Beirut. I can't wait to see you as well. You guys know I will be there with Katie Halper and the Gray Zone. I was invited to be a part of that panel. So I'll be in New Jersey the weekend of the 23rd. Looking forward to that. Thank you, Kevin. Federal job guarantee. Housing, healthcare, education as basic human rights now. Thank you, Artie. Love Professor Wolff, but he has Mondami blind spots. Thank you, Naya. 43% of DSA oppose keeping an anti-Zionist stance. That's concerning. That is really concerning. Thank you, Diamond. I am Jesus Christ, the God of Christians. Judaism and Islam is Hubble worship. Hubble is a fallen angel from the Andromeda star system. Allah means moon god is Arabic. Moon is not natural, his creation. Interesting. Shout out to G Morris for the super sticker. And thank you, River. Thank you, Sabby, for having Richard Wolff on your show. He's excellent. You are welcome. Let's get the comment on Rockfin, Corey, and then we will scoot to the next story. Thank you for the tip, Roger. In the US, a notable shift occurred around the 1970s where house prices, which had been declining relative to income for almost a century, began to appreciate against income, leading people to increasingly treat their homes as assets rather than commodities that depreciated in value. Although decommodified housing does not mean rent-free, what it does mean is removing it from the speculative market where it's treated as a financial asset to be bought and sold for profit instead. The goal is to treat housing as a basic human right and social good. Either social housing community land trusts, housing cooperatives, limited equity housing. These models aim to create a housing system that prioritizes people's needs over profit insurance, stable and affordable housing options for everyone. The 6 infrastructures public banks can raise revenue for based on tax deposits is 1, transportation like ports, roads, bridges, streets, tunnels, and high-speed rail. 2, anything that's associated with H2O. 3, reliable high-speed public broadband. And 4, power grid. I think you mean 5. 5, sewage. 6, waste management. Make it part of government jobs guarantee. That'll fix Michigan problem along with other states proliferating employees from the MIC. All right. Okay, ladies and gents, let's get to the next story. This is quite a doozy. If you haven't done so, go ahead and smash the like, and I think you're going to get a kick out of this one. We say unleash the Kraken because it just seems like it's happening. People are speaking out in ways that I didn't think they would, and there are people who are speaking out in such a way that I am very surprised still. It appears that Marjorie Taylor Greene is under attack. Now, this is quite interesting considering that after October 7th, Marjorie Taylor Greene was very pro-Israel. She was one of the people that criticized the pro-Palestinian protesters that showed up at Capitol Hill. Never forget that. We covered that on the show. And now she is one of the people that is speaking out against Israel, and she is calling it a genocide. And because of that, now AIPAC is after her. Now, apparently, Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of those people that really did want an America first. Let's check out this clip from her here. She is pissed.
Tell you what, 6 months in, Steve, and here we are turning back on the campaign promises, and we bombed Iran on behalf of Israel. Yes, it was on behalf of Israel. We're entering a nuclear war, the World War III, because the entire world is going to erupt. And you want to know the people that are cheering it on right now? Their tune is going to drastically change the minute we start seeing flag draped coffins on the nightly news, on Fox News that brainwashes all the baby boomers, and on CNN that brainwashes all the Democrat baby boomers. And that is exactly how this is going to go down. I'll tell you
what is happening here, ladies and gents? I'm telling you, sometimes I feel like we live in an episode of The Twilight Zone. She's calling out at the end there. She's calling out Fox News and CNN News. But she's right that, yes, the U.S. did attack Iran on behalf of Israel. And apparently it appears that Marjorie Taylor Greene has said a little bit too much, at least as far as AIPAC is concerned, because they are now after her and apparently want to go after her seat here. Now, she posted this on X. AIPAC is sending fundraising emails attacking me for saying the most truthful and easiest thing to say, that October 7th in Israel was horrific and all hostages must be returned. But so is the genocide, humanitarian crisis, and starvation happening in Gaza. Here's the thing. She's not even saying that Hamas had the right to resist under international law. She's not even going to that extent. But she is calling it a genocide. And now I think that's what they really have a problem with, right? So she went on to say this. Well, this is the sign on the door of my front office. I think the truth is AIPAC doesn't like it because I unapologetically represent America. Here's that picture she's referring to here. The door of her office says no foreign lobbying. If you enter this office seeking funds on behalf of a foreign nation, you may be in violation of 22 U.S. Code 611-62, Foreign Agents Registration Act, America First. Now, this is coming from Marjorie Taylor Greene. Kudos to her for taking this position. I think the only one kind of taking this position in Congress along with her is Thomas Massie. The rest of her comrades there, no. It just, like, I don't know what to say. One of the things that is driving me crazy is that Marjorie Taylor Greene will call it a genocide, Bernie Sanders will not. That's the thing to me that really drives me crazy. So she's not afraid to stand up here. Now, she doesn't get off the hook, though, because we're going to show you something. That's why people are asking, is this karma? Now, Azad Jalani, journalist here, he said AIPAC's fundraising email about Marjorie Taylor Greene is like, you expect this from Muslims, but not from MTG. Let's take a look at it, guys. See, kind of giving away the game. AIPAC fears losing Middle America the most, and they are. So here is a piece of that email. You expect anti-Israel smears from Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, the group said. But now Marjorie Taylor Greene has joined their ranks, spouting the same vile rhetoric and voting against the U.S.-Israel alliance. And this is where I say, when we talk about new parties, this is where I say, imagine if those people, whether it's Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massie, whether it's Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, what if those people all came together and had a separate party? Now, I know some people say, that's crazy, that's wild, that would never happen, and maybe, I don't know. But it's obvious that you have people, you have Congress members from both parties that the establishment is having issues with. And yes, I do consider AIPAC to be part of the establishment as well with the ADL. So things are happening here, folks. And I'll be honest with you, after she came after the pro-Palestinian protesters after October 7th, if you would have told me, wait for it, Sabby, Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to speak out against Israel later on, I would have never believed it. Never believed it. I expected from Rashida Tlaib, I expected from Ilhan Omar, I expect for them to speak out against these things. I did not expect it coming from her. So that has been the item that was not on my bingo card for this year. So it seems like Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to unleash the Kraken. And apparently Mark Levin and his crazy ass is after Marjorie Taylor Greene because of this. He's coming after her now. Told you they don't just come after Democrats. They come after anybody that's speaking out against Israel. She said, Fox News host Mark Levin is a raging psychopath. He is attacking me, lying about me, and even worse in comments in his own post calling Christians bigots and says I should go to prison. All because I am unapologetically America first and unapologetically fighting for my children's generation. Ever since I called for a recorded vote on my amendments to defund U.S. taxpayer money to Israel and the other foreign countries' foreign aid, Mark Levin has rabidly been attacking me. And then the attacks started from AIPAC. Do you see a pattern? Fox News host Mark Levin, once hateful never Trumper, is 100% Israel first and America last. And she's referring to this post here where it says from Rebecca Dopp, MTG is speaking to my concerns as an American. You are not. It's that simple. I'm a Christian. Christ is king. And Mark Levin responded to Rebecca and said, you're a bigot. B Tell Truth said MTG 2028. Mark Levin says prison. So we all know Mark Levin is pro-Israel and he's there to pretty much protect Israel, right? So notice how this guy who was going after like people like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, notice how now he's turning his attention towards Marjorie Taylor Greene, even though they're both conservative. When Israel is mentioned, that is the change agent. That's the change agent. Now, Marjorie Taylor Greene has been appearing on Matt Gaetz' show, and this is some crazy things that are coming out now. Matt Gaetz has some things to say as well as what happened to him when he was in Congress. But I want you to hear what she said here about how she signed up to be America first, not Israel first, not any other country first. And she's just not falling for it. She's not buying it. When people say, well, it is America first if you're Israel first, because Israel represents our interests in the Middle East. Yeah, tell that to people that represent districts or live in districts where the homelessness rate continues to increase, where the unemployment rate continues to increase. I told you guys, Boston, Massachusetts sends $10 million a year to Israel. But we got all these homeless people out on the street. People can't afford their apartments. So listen to what she said here to Matt Gaetz.
The reason I invited you on is because I think you really diagnose things well ahead of time. And you are concerned about the Republican Party betraying some of the values of America First that President Trump ran on and that you've really been a standard bearer for in the House of Representatives. And in lieu of that, we got to talk about AIPAC attacking you, sending out fundraising emails saying that you are not acting in the interests of our country. Marjorie Taylor Greene, your reaction to AIPAC's fundraising emails attacking you?
Yeah, and Matt, I'll go ahead and be straight and honest about this. I'm absolutely furious. And as a matter of fact, AIPAC needs to register as a foreign lobbyist because they're breaking U.S. laws by donating to members of Congress and by taking them on a fully funded trip to Israel every single freshman member of Congress's year. They just took them over just recently and had them meet with the Prime Minister of Israel. But let's frame that correctly. They take them over to meet with the secular government of nuclear-armed Israel. Israel, who is in less than $400 billion in debt. Israel, who has taxpayer-funded healthcare and college. Israel is not hurting, and they've already proven that they are more than capable of not only defending themselves, but annihilating their enemies to the point of genocide. And that's what's happening in Gaza. And Matt, the reason why AIPAC is attacking me is because I dared to tell the truth. Well, Matt, you and I are good friends. We served together in Congress, and you know that I have taken zero money from AIPAC. As a matter of fact, I am so unapologetically American. I have a sign on the door of my office that tells all lobbyists, foreign lobbyists, to stay out of my office and that they have to follow the law. They have to follow the law and register as a foreign lobbyist and be clear about what country they represent. Because I represent America. As a matter of fact, I've been saying America first for a long time, but I'm getting to the point of saying America only. And I'll tell you why, Matt. It's because pretty much if you're under the age of 40, you have no hope for the future. We're $37 trillion in debt. People can't afford to buy a house. They can't afford rent. They can't afford insurance. They can't afford their bills. And we have HB1 visas stealing all these American jobs. And I'm sick and tired and fed up with it. So if AIPAC, who donates, by the way, to more Democrats than Republicans, as a matter of fact, they're all for Democrats, but they do donate to Republicans as well. But listen, if AIPAC wants to come after me and accuse me of betraying my American values, AIPAC, you know what? You can bring it on.
This is why, and I know, where did it go? Lee said, Jesus, she sounds like Bernie. What is happening? What is going on? Like I told you, this was not on my bingo card for this year at all. I could have never predicted this, never in a million years. So I don't know, but they pissed her off really badly. And that just goes to tell you something, guys. Obviously, she is conservative, right? And she has said multiple times that she is a Christian, etc. If she can sit up there and call it a genocide, that tells you that her colleagues in the GOP in the House can do the same thing. Can do the same thing, but they're not going to because most of them take money either from AIPAC or from Kufi. It's not just AIPAC. There's also Kufi. And on the Democrat side, you got a lot of people that take lobby interest money from J Street. By the way, J Street still won't go as far as to call it a genocide either. And this is where people are getting shook, because I said unleash the Kraken, because people are shaking over here like, how is it that she can call it a genocide, but Bernie Sanders will not? What is happening? What is going on? Let's continue on a little bit here.
Totally ready for this. And this is a fight that I will fight, and I will give it my all. And I can guarantee you, you're going to lose, because America is fed up, Matt. They're fed up to here with funding foreign wars, funding foreign causes, funding foreign countries for foreign reasons that have nothing to do with Americans, while Americans work their ass off every day and pay their taxes and come home and they're living paycheck to paycheck and their credit cards are maxed out. I don't care anymore. I honestly don't care. So I'll burn this bridge to the ground, and I will let the flames light the way. And because this is a fight that needs to happen.
She said, I will burn this bridge to the ground. Someone said, how did this happen, Ruben? I don't know. I do not know. Maybe it's because, I don't know. She went on TYT. Does everybody remember? This wasn't too long ago. Marjorie Taylor Greene went on TYT and had the interview with Cenk. I don't know if it was this conversation with, I don't know what happened, but she went from I'm America first to now she's saying, I don't care. We can burn this to the ground. Something is happening here. And part of me wonders, like, maybe she's going to try to run for something bigger. Let me tell you something, folks, as someone who lived down south, okay? I know I'm in Massachusetts now and I've been here for quite a while, but my fam and a lot of my close buds are still down south, okay? Let me tell you something about Southern women. Southern women can be as sweet and as nice as you would expect. But if you piss one of them off, good luck. I can say it's just like, good luck. When you start hearing them say things like, I will burn this to the ground, good luck. It is the Southern women that even the Christian Southern women, you piss them off if they start speaking to you in that way, or if they start cussing you out in public, just don't, no. Mouse said, you better run. It's the Southern women. I remember I would see it, like if I was in the store, especially when I worked retail, when I was in the store, if you saw a Southern mom turn around and say to her kid, you say it one more time and we'll walk out of here and I'll make sure you get nothing out of this store. Say it again. Oh, it's like, it is unsafe. You do not want to piss Southern women off. However, the Matt Gaetz parts is also pretty creepy too, because Matt Gaetz has been saying a lot more now that he is no longer in Congress. And wait till you hear what he said about his experience with AIPAC one time when he was on a trip. This is creepy.
I went on that AIPAC trip. I went on subsequent trips. And there is an actual downward pressure from the leadership and even the committee chairs. Like if you're on the Foreign Affairs Committee, if you're on the Armed Services Committee, if you're on the Intelligence Committee, there's like an expectation that you go there in some sort of like, congressional Hajj. And I remember being I'll never go back. I was at the King David Hotel and I rolled back to my room unexpectedly when the rest of the group was still on some planned activity. And there's some dude in my room. I'm like, hey man, what are you doing here? And he acted like he was associated with the hotel and taking an inventory, but had no clipboard. And so, yeah, there's a lot of reasons why they want members of Congress over there. And it is ideologically to steep them in this notion that the protection of Israel is of great import to people in America. But it's really not that important to voters. And that is becoming more clear on the right and left. I went on.
So that's creepy. Like, and this video has been making the rounds on social media where Matt Gaetz tells you, yeah, there was an AIPAC person like in my hotel room. That is thirsty as hell. That's how thirsty they are. That's how thirsty they are, how badly they want to make sure that they sick their claws into you while they can. And it's just absolutely disgusting. Matt Gaetz went on to say, this absolutely happened. I explained these events to my family in case something went awry with me. I reported this to my committee leadership at the time and was told it was regular and I should never leave anything meaningful in my hotel room abroad as a member of Congress. So that was Matt Gaetz responding to the video that I just showed you. Now, here's the thing. Some people are looking at Marjorie Taylor Greene and they're calling it karma. Like Nick, for example, from my comrade Nick from RBN, he said, some of you MFs are giving Marjorie Taylor Greene way too much credit. She's genocidal Zionist scum like the rest of them. And he's going back to, this is what I was talking about. In 2023, this is October 2023, October 16th-ish, the Palestinian lives and Israel genocide narrative is the new Black Lives Matter. This was from Marjorie Taylor Greene. And the Hamas caucus is starting it now. They have voted every time for funding war in Ukraine, but now we're calling for peace in Gaza. But make no mistake, they are pro-Hamas and against Israel. This was Marjorie Taylor Greene. And that is why, see, she was calling AOC, Cori Bush, and Ilhan Omar the Hamas caucus. That is why I said, if you would have told me back then that she would be calling out Israel later on, I wouldn't have believed it. I would not have believed it. So somehow they have managed to piss her off. And by the way, she said that under Biden's administration. She was still pro-Israel under Biden's administration. Now, under Trump's administration, which is the presidential candidate that she supported and advocated for, now she's calling out Israel. So it's weird. It's almost like you would have expected her to call them out under the Democrat administration, but not under the Trump administration. But no, she's calling it out now. So I don't know, honey, but I will tell you this. She pulled the opposite of a toast. She said, I will burn this down. It's almost like I said, unleash the Kraken. So either, I wonder if she's going to try to run for something else. But long story short, AIPAC is coming for her seat. Yeah, they don't just go after Democrats. They'll go after Republicans too. Crazy times, folks. Crazy, crazy times. Ay, ay, ay. Let's get to some of the comments here in the chat and we'll get to the next story. Matt says, wow, love that shirt, Sabrina. Thank you, Matt. The Suprema Illusion. What's crazy is she's the one saying all of this. I know. It just... Oh my God. Thank you, Nina. Palestinian journalist Anas al-Sharif was martyred. Palestine's last strong voice was martyred. Anas al-Sharif, was this recent? I'll have to check that, Nina. Thank you for letting us know. Oof. Shout out to Ken McCarthy for becoming a Sabby member. Give Ken a big whoop whoop. Skylar says, if she says, I'm going to burn this mother down, the match is already falling towards the gasoline. I'm telling you, don't piss them off. Matt says, my grandma was vicious with a broom. Southern women will spank their kids in public. I told you not to act up in the store. Thank you, Ken. What's up, Ken? Maybe MTG is learning about JFK and his fight to get Israel to register their lobbyists. She's even talking about their nuclear weapons. The country is ready for this. It just needed a leader. Yeah, man. This is something else. And thank you, Anita. MTG found out Israeli hate Christians and we've lost our freedom of speech because of Zionists. There you go. There you go. Oh my gosh. All right. Let's keep it moving. Keep it moving and moving and moving. All right. If you haven't done so, folks, smash the like. Thank you. And we're continuing on. So, ladies and gents, people are angry with rapper Fat Joe. And they are angry at him because they are blaming him for the reason why the BET Awards are now suspended. Now, I'm going to give you a deeper understanding of this. I think it's multiple things. I don't think it's just Fat Joe. And what does this really mean for network television? Something I think we've been trying to warn people about. But they have made the announcement already. Here's why BET has suspended the Soul Train and Hip Hop Awards. So listen to this, folks. People are like not happy. BET has officially hit pause on two of its most iconic shows, the BET Hip Hop Awards and the Soul Train Awards. Both award shows have reportedly been suspended indefinitely, according to the network. BET CEO Scott Mills confirmed the news in an interview with Billboard, and he went on to say, so for BET Linear, we have suspended the Soul Train and Hip Hop Award shows, but we have a team that's actively thinking about where those award shows might best live as the media climate continues to evolve. They aren't gone. And we also still have the NAACP Image Awards and the Stellar Awards. Okay, folks, listen up, okay? Award shows are not something I'm really big into. I feel like I used to watch them a lot more back in the day, right? Like before streaming, which we'll get into, I did used to watch more award shows. The Academy Awards, Oscars was not really my thing. I always found it kind of boring. But I used to watch like music award shows, MTV Music Awards, BET Music Awards, what's the other one? Billboard Music Awards. I used to watch those things back in the day. But as I've gotten older, I kind of moved away from that because I'm like, I don't really need this. It was different back then because I used to go to the record store and actually buy a CD, right? Who remembers that? How many of you remember Sam Goody or Blockbuster? Like we used to go to the store and buy CDs. And so when you're looking at an award show, it reflects not just performance, but also album sales. Well, nowadays things are different. It's not so much as about album sales. It's about how many downloads you received on Spotify or Apple, like iTunes or something like that. It's just different. When I was growing up, artists like really had to work their ass off to sell an album. There wasn't before social media got into the mix. Like you can say whatever you want about the R&B groups of the 90s, etc., the rappers of the 90s, but there was no Facebook, there was no Twitter. Like if they wanted to sell, they had to actively go out and go on tour. And it was a lot harder back then to sell albums than today, where everybody can I'll just download it on Spotify. So you had to put in more work. So if somebody tells you that Michael Jackson sold this many albums, like compare that to Drake sold this many. Just think about what it took to sell an album back then. Things were different. So awards to me are just like, meh, I've lost a lot of interest in that because of the climate. But he went on to say, clarifying further, it is less about them being no longer and more about our team having to reimagine them for this changing media landscape that we find ourselves in. I think that what we are going to see are more people taking franchises and saying, this might have started on linear television, but now I'm going to move it to another space. Do I move it to streaming or do I move it to another platform? And that is the CEO of BET there. So people got to understand. So people are pissed, as you can imagine. And one of the reasons why people are upset is because of Fat Joe. People feel as though that it was his fault, that he is the reason here why this has happened. Now, I want to bring you back to this. We'll give a shout out here to author Watkins, because people were raging against this. He said, update at this point, Fat Joe resigns from the BET Awards amid pressure from the Freedman community. That was January 10th, 2025. Fat Joe officially resigned from hosting the BET Awards following sustained pressure from the freedmen community. This is a testament to the power of unified advocacy and accountability. And I'll go ahead and get into this video here so you can see this for yourself.
You know, thank you. I resigned as host of the BET Hip Hop Awards because real shit. 2 Chainz said I've been monopolizing, so he said, "Yo, let me host. I know I could be a good host." I said, "You know what, my brother, you could be the host next year."
You passed the torch officially.
Yeah. The 2 Chainz. I mean, BET don't know that, you know. But, you know, sidebar with 2 Chainz. He was like, "Yo, I really want to do that." I was like,
FBA, should I play it again?
So yeah, he was laughing at him. So there was a lot of pushback here. Number one, people were like, well, Fat Joe is not black and he was hosting the BET Awards. Also, Fat Joe made some pretty derogatory statements towards FBA. Fat Joe went there. And we talked about that before on the show. And I was like, oh boy, you really crossed the line as you're going to host the BET Awards. So there was a lot of pushback against him for doing that. And people just felt like he didn't respect his place. But then there was also this. It's part of this is about Fat Joe, but it's not just about Fat Joe. You also got to look at the numbers here, and shout out to Dewan B. He shared this. The BET Hip Hop Awards viewership dropped from over 3 million live viewers under FBA host Mike Epps to just around 330,000 under Fat Joe. Now, guys, whether you like award shows or not, that's a big difference. To go from 3 million live viewers to 330,000 live viewers, that is a big difference. That's a problem. And you can see it here if you look at the graph. He went on to say, our voices online reverberated. Black American culture disrespect will not be tolerated. And Fat Joe was being disrespectful. So you can just see the decline here, right? So network television does rely on viewership. It relies on ratings. And when the numbers drop like that, that is not a good sign. Now, obviously, is the CEO of BET going to come out and tell you what Dewan just told you and what I just told you? No, probably not. They don't really want to tell you that the show's in trouble or the network's in trouble until they absolutely have to. You never want to give people that impression unless you absolutely have to. Otherwise, if you tell people too soon, then they're going to check out earlier than you would assume that they would, right? It's a bit how marketing works. I think some people may not be aware of that, but that is a little trick, by the way. Even when they start to see that sales decline or views decline, they're not going to tell you all of that right up front. They'll wait until they have no other choice, and then they will tell you. Now, Fat Joe has come forward now since the suspension of the Hip Hop Awards and the Soul Train Awards, and he says that BET has been gentrified. Really now? It's interesting coming from him, but listen to this. This is what he said on Joe and Jada. Oh, I'm sorry, but when he says about the gentrification, some people will point to Fat Joe and say, yeah, weren't you a part of the gentrification? But the point that he's talking about here about the money, right? Like not putting money into BET, not putting money like into those shows, BET being sold off. And I don't know why business owners continue to do this. Sometimes I just want to, especially if it is a black owned business, sometimes I just want to grab people and just tell them like, you didn't watch Empire, damn it. You didn't watch Empire. Okay. Don't go public, because then you go public, then you have a board, and the board has more control of the company than you do. Don't go public. Don't go selling off shares. Don't go selling the business to other people. But people do it because they want to make more money. And that's the sad part. That's the sad part. People want to make more money, and that's why they sell these businesses off. So Fat Joe's out there talking, he knows people have said some things about him. He doesn't want people blaming him, but it does say something that the viewership dropped the way that it did when he became the host, because some people felt as though, look, dude, what is happening here? You've been very disrespectful with your mouth towards Black people, but here you are hosting the BET Awards. So yeah, there were people in the Black community that definitely took issue with that, but it's not just about Fat Joe. In 2023, the warning went out. The warning went out from the Center for Digital Future, the end of broadcast TV. They were sounding the alarm back then. Shout out to Jeffrey Cole for this one, fam. We're going to just jump down to this part right about here. The networks are dying. It is only a matter of time before they disappear completely or merge into the streaming channels owned by their parent companies, ABC into Disney Plus, NBC into Peacock, and CBS into Paramount. It has been a slow death. In the 1990s, the network's financial health had so deteriorated that the FCC repealed the 20-year FinCEN rules, allowing the broadcasters once again to own their shows and improve their diminishing profitability. It was too late. So let's just go back in time, folks. Let's just go back in time. This was always coming. It was coming. It is just, when is the last time you watched a show on network television? The last time I watched a show on network television, let's exclude sports, okay? Excluding sports games. The last time had to been Empire. Empire was the last show that I watched on network television. And then from there, it's just kind of, most of the time, what do we watch? Like most of the time it's Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus. And a lot of these great shows that are on like Netflix or Hulu or Disney Plus or Amazon Prime, they're not available on network TV. There are many of you watching right now that probably don't even have cable anymore. Like, these are things that people started to remove, get rid of, like over time, because it was too expensive. And so people are like, do I really need to have cable if I have Netflix or Hulu? Do I really need to have it? So I think this is a big part of it. The warning went out in March of this year as well. Network TV is dead. Long live local TV. And this is from Emily Barr from Raising the Bar. Earlier, again, they made it pretty clear here. Let me just go ahead and jump down a little bit here. She was talking about the Miami market there in particular, but she dives into station owners. So she said here, over time, station owners were forced to make ever increasing retransmission consent demands to pay their network overlords, leading in some cases to impetus. At the same time, the networks began siphoning money out of local markets while diminishing the level of exclusivity of the content they license to the stations. So while the networks ratchet up their financial demands with every affiliation renewal, they stripped away more and more exclusivity from local affiliates for key events and content such as the Oscars, the Grammys, college and NFL football, March Madness, and every other premier event. Look at this part. In fact, you cannot find a traditional network primetime show today without finding those programs on the network's platforms, all while being hounded by ads on your local stations promoting Hulu, Paramount Plus, Peacock, and Tubi, not to mention Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, Showtime, and more. It is no wonder that cable and satellite operators started pushing back on the every 2 to 3 year demands for increasing retransmission rates while simultaneously negotiating with the networks themselves to develop skinny bundles and specialty packages aimed at stemming the bleed out they saw in subscriber losses. So long story short, guys, and this is something I think we've seen over the years, right? Are people really watching network TV like that anymore? Because I don't. And I was thinking about this, like for all the people who no longer have cable, and people are like, well, you don't have cable, what do you watch? Streaming services, streaming platforms. You know, back in the day, the simple network television, ABC, CBS, NBC, and then later Fox, right? Like as long as if you had those four, you were good. But then cable came along. Cable showed up and said, oh, well, you can only watch this show or these movies on HBO or on TNT or TBS. So then those four channels had to start competing with cable. And now cable and those four channels have to compete with streaming. Things don't stay the same. The tide is shifting. So yeah, there was anger towards Fat Joe, but it's not just him. We talked about it before with corporate media, but it's not just corporate media. You guys are seeing it across all of it. People are moving away from network television and they're focusing more on these streaming platforms. And it was only a matter of time. You know what they say, especially when it comes to entertainment. Look, you're only here for a short time. You don't know how long these things are going to last. This is why I said, and think about it. When was the last time you watched a sitcom that wasn't reruns of a sitcom? Like in the 90s, like we had sitcoms, we had Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, we had TGIF, like Thank Goodness It's Friday, we had Martin, we had all these different Full House, all this type of stuff. But what are the sitcoms today? What happened to that, right? So people move in a different direction. Streaming is booming. Streaming is booming, fam. And that's where a lot of people are looking. And that's where a lot of people are watching. And I don't know. It's not good news for BET, no matter what the CEO wants you to believe. That chart that I showed you there, that graph, is not good news for BET. But they're not alone. A lot of these networks are experiencing the same thing. I don't know, guys. Not good news. Not good news. Roger Meadows said that Bob Johnson said he regretted selling BET to Viacom when Russell Simmons sold his stake in Def Jam to Universal Music Group. After that, they completely devastated it and he was left heartbroken. Yeah, well, I'm glad that he regrets doing it. I just wish people would stop doing that. I wish people would stop selling their businesses to these bigger vulture companies. And I get it. I think they just want the money. But yeah, Fat Joe not having a good week. Eric, we can go to part 2 of Tight VNC. Oh man, JB said it's all about the bag. Yeah, it's just like why are you selling these businesses? I hate that. Thank you, Corina. Thank you, Sabby. Appreciate this podcast. You are welcome. Thanks, Justice. It's not real, has murdered another journalist again. Yes, okay, so that's who someone sent something recently. I have to check that out. I'm not surprised though. Thank you for the super sticker, Piano Man. Are you going to sing us a song? Are you the Piano Man? I'm being goofy. Thank you, Naya. Israel admitted that they killed 5 Al Jazeera staff. Okay, that's what everyone's talking about. Corey just told me Al Jazeera journalists killed in Israeli attack. I'm not surprised. Not surprised. Thank you, Nicole. I'm tired of Sloppy Joe speaking on FBA business. Yeah, people are mad at Fat Joe. Thank you. Where's the love? Is Fat Joe and the trashy ratchet stank disrespect? It's sickening watching untalented folks being highlighted and rewarded. FBAs are done. Okie dokie. All right, guys, quick announcement, and then we'll move on. We got 2 more stories for you. I'm trying to stay on schedule, so bear with me. All right, thank you guys so much. Shout out to everyone who donated to the back to school donation. That is this Saturday. If you're in the area, we will be at Codman Square Library in Dorchester at noon this Saturday. If you want to help, I know we got some people in Boston that come to help us sometimes. So thank you guys to everyone that donated. We met our goal, and we are going to be donating those school supplies to kids at Codman Square Library. And I already saw the book bags and everything, like everything came in great. So thank you guys. Thank you so much. Really do appreciate you, fam. Also, I have not forgotten, of course, about the documentary. Just want to give you guys an update on that. Again, thank you to those of you that have donated to the documentary. I think I'll share the link to this via newsletter. Our goal is 10,000. We're doing pretty well, actually, but shout out to all of you. For those of you who don't know about the documentary, I think everybody knows by now, but the documentary is called Remove. It's about the Black erasure in Boston. We've been doing a lot of filming. I have a professional editor that I've been working with. And so the fundraising goes to pay the editor because he's doing a really good job. So I can't wait. I just wanted to be done already because I want to show you guys so bad because it's good. Like, and I don't want to toot my own horn, but it's good. And okay, Eric, it's really good so far, and it's not even finalized yet, but I think he's done a really amazing job. So I'll keep you guys updated about that, and I'll just put the link for that in my newsletter for those who still want to donate to the documentary. So excited about that. We'll get the other ones at the end because I got to make sure I stay on. I'm trying to do better with the time here. Okay, we got another story for you folks. Two more stories. The first one, Alan Dershowitz, Unleash the Kraken. Alan Dershowitz again is painting himself as a victim once again. And this time it is over a pierogi. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Alan Dershowitz tried to pull a whole hissy fit because he was denied a pierogi. For those who don't know, pierogies are those little yummy potato-filled little pastry kind of things, but not really a pastry. They have potatoes and cheese in the inside, sometimes a little bit of bacon and some chives. Anywho, Dershowitz pierogi gate feud with Martha's Vineyard vendor escalates. So I'll show you the video of that conversation that he had as well. He was at Martha's Vineyard. So let's put this all together, okay? Alan Dershowitz was at Martha's Vineyard, and he is complaining because a pierogi stand vendor refused to sell a pierogi to him. First, let's take 2 steps back. The fact that you're at Martha's Vineyard, let's talk about the class issue here. I live in Massachusetts. I've never been to Martha's Vineyard. Not saying that I can't go, but let's just talk about this for a second. Particularly this time of year, usually people with money go. Usually it's people with money who are there. So you're at Martha's Vineyard, and your biggest complaint is that you couldn't get a pierogi from the pierogi stand because they didn't want to donate. They didn't want to give pierogi to someone who was promoting genocide, someone who's advocating for Israel's genocide. This is what Alan Dershowitz is upset about. This guy is destined to make himself the most ultimate victim in the world. He is now threatening legal action against the Martha's Vineyard Farmers Market vendor who refused him service over the celebrity attorney's past clients. Why it matters. The pierogi protestation shows how high political tensions can run and that Massachusetts have few legal protections against service refusal based on ideology. So first and foremost, this is a private vendor, right? They can refuse service. I feel like people sometimes don't know that, but they can. They can refuse service, right? So let's get into this conversation here. Here is Alan Dershowitz at Martha's Vineyard, and he is upset. Listen to this. He is confronting Good Pierogi. Check this out.
In an effort to try to restore community and to ask you to sell me pierogi in the interest of keeping the island together so we don't have 2 pierogi stands one for anti-Zionists and one for people who will sell to everybody. So I'd ask you to please just sell me any one of your products to show that you're prepared to sell to anybody and not allow your anti-Zionism to decide which people will sell. Will sell to.
Ethan, this man is calling me an anti-Zionist.
This man is a saint. Mm-hmm. I also offer you this book, which
thank you.
I signed it to you. To Krem, please learn the truth.
Thank you so much, Alan. Thank you so much. I am very surprised that you're here because of the things that you've been saying about us and the business.
No, just you. Yeah.
Online.
Yeah.
Well, Good Pirog is our business and Krem is me. And I really do not appreciate what you've been sharing in the last week. Is it true?
Of course.
You have proof that I am an anti-Semite.
Yeah, you protested the Jewish Culture Festival last year, which had nothing to do with Israel or Zionism. It was just Jewish food, Jewish music, Jewish art, and you protested it, and the rabbi said that was an anti-Semitic act. Do you disagree?
So do you see what Alan Dershowitz is doing? So he went back to that pierogi stand, and of course people are filming, and he's trying to say that vendor there is anti-Semitic because they protested at a Jewish cultural event. So you see how they trying to blend the two together. See, this is the little trick that they do. People like Alan Dershowitz, they try to blend the two. So they try to make it so that if you say you're anti-Zionist, that basically means you're anti-Judaism. That's a trick. Two, the fact that Alan Dershowitz is a lawyer, one would think that he would know that a private business can refuse service to anyone. One would think he would know that. And I'm pretty sure he probably does know that. But this is a greater push here to make him out to be the ultimate victim.
With that?
I do disagree with that.
You think it's okay to protest Jewish cultural events and not be called an anti-Semite?
Thank you.
My vendor just called me over.
Excuse me,
and
what
let me
this
know
man
that
is
a word that you used made them
What
feel a
this
little
man is
uncomfortable.
saying.
Anti-Semite.
No,
That's what they
what
just
this
let me
man
know.
is saying.
Anti-Zionist
just called me
and
over.
Protest Jews at all.
And they just let me know that that made them feel uncomfortable. So if there's anything I can do to help complete this transaction,
I offer you this book.
I see
My
that.
pronouns are they, them, and you know about this, that my pronouns are they, them, and you continue to misgender me.
You know what? Use them all the time.
No, you just called me him, so
Well,
please stop
people have
lying.
slips of the tongue.
You
You are
don't have
they,
slip.
you are them. I'm happy to use whatever pronouns you want. This is not about that. This is about you protesting a Jewish event.
No.
You did?
No.
Did you protest the Jewish event? Well, you won't answer that question?
Alan, I want to introduce myself.
Hi, I'm Alan.
Yeah, I'm Talia.
Talia.
I'm a Jewish member of the community who is one of the organizers of the peaceful Jewish led protest
Against.
outside of the
Pause. So she is Jewish. So the protest that he's referring to, she said she was one of the lead organizers and that it was peaceful, but she is Jewish. Now, I don't know if he knew that, but let's go on.
Jewish cultural
The Jewish
festival.
Cultural Festival. You
Could you
protested
please
the
let me
fact that you're
finish?
Jewish doesn't
This is not
matter.
a cross-examination, it's a conversation.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah. Very important to know how much of the vineyard supports this
Alan,
bigotry.
listen
Hey,
to me.
don't call us bigots. Don't call us bigots. My grandparents died in the Holocaust. Don't you call me an anti-Semite.
Everybody flee with banners that said, all liberation is inextricably linked. My Jewish culture is a history of resistance against genocide. We are not anti-Semites. We stand against oppression of all people.
That part right there, she said her Jewish culture is resistance against genocide, against the oppression of all people. That is why she organized the protest.
protested a Jewish cultural event.
No, we did not.
Why are you telling me what I protested?
Yes,
Because
exactly.
everybody was there. They saw it. You didn't.
Were you there?
You were there?
Of course I was.
Did you weren't
Of
there?
course I was.
Truth is
Of course I was.
subjective, okay? We
Yeah,
get to all
that's
have
what
opinions.
all bigots say.
You lied about everything.
Alan, you're
Please do
bullying
not.
us.
Please do not bully us. Please do not call us bigots.
Bullying you. You're the one who
We
won't
are-
sell me my pierogi.
Yeah,
You're
but
the
not-
one who won't sell me my pierogi. I'm
It's
not
not
bullying
happening
you.
anymore,
I'm just
sir.
asking
It's
you to
time for
read the other side of the
I don't
story.
want to read this.
So here comes the propaganda, right? So he arrives with literature because he wants to, well, read this story so you can get on our side or maybe get back on our side. I think what people need to understand is, number one, to hell with Alan Dershowitz, because here's the thing. This guy made a big freaking deal because he was not allowed to get a pierogi. They wouldn't sell him a pierogi. There are people who were denied jobs, Alan Dershowitz. There were people in this country who were denied jobs because they were Black. You see, this is why, all of this, the way that it makes me feel, it really does make me feel some kind of damn way. Part of the reason why I'm so frustrated about the federal jobs being cut is because those federal jobs came in, they were implemented by the federal government to give Black people jobs when the states would not. We have people in this country that have gone through, this guy is pretending like he is the most victimized person in the world. Now, I want to remind you something here, because we cannot let them run away with this narrative, and especially all of you listening, but in particular to Black people listening, we cannot let them run away with this narrative, because what they're trying to do, Alan Dershowitz is trying to make it seem like the white minority are the most victimized people in America. And I want to remind everybody that Alan Dershowitz can walk down the street in neighborhoods that I can't. Alan Dershowitz can drive his car late at night and not have to worry about being targeted by the police. Alan Dershowitz, there's places he can go and things that he can do where he will never be considered a threat. This is real. And yet he wants you to believe that he's so victimized because they refuse to sell him a pierogi. Yet you have people in this country that have been denied housing. They were denied home loans because of redlining. Whether they had the what do you call it? The income, whether they had the income or the credit or not. During those days, you had Black families in this country that were denied home loans because of redlining. He wasn't denied. You have Black people in this country that were denied equality in the Jim Crow South. He wasn't denied. And so this is why I we got to push back on this. His goal, and also, of course, Jonathan Greenblatt's goal from the ADL, their goal is to make it seem like they are the most victimized people in this country, simply because people are saying we do not support a genocide. Guys, that is very problematic. I'm already hearing it now, too, by the way, which I'm going to get deep into this on Tuesday. They are already making the call. I heard it on Meet the Press. They are already making the call to give Ukrainians reparations. Like, people think that, and I said this before, the number of people who told me it's divisive. Look how quickly Columbia University just gave cash reparations to the Jewish employees at Columbia University. Look how quickly they just did that because their feelings were hurt over seeing a Palestinian flag. This is the extension of the supremacy. When I say the colonialism didn't end, this is still colonialism. And people like Alan Dershowitz, they keep this propaganda going. So as long as they can convince people that they're the most victimized and they're not oppressed, but the most victimized and the most oppressed, that is the goal here. That is the goal. Let's continue on here.
Let's move on. Because you know the truth.
I don't know if I know the truth.
So
That's the thing. I'm not you. I don't assume that I know the truth.
Alan, you can either be a part of a community or you can be a bully, and you're being a bully.
Can I read this here for you?
You can read it here. I don't know if I'm going to pick it up. Time to go. Alan, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're guessing after him or to me?
You just called me a he. You just called me a he again. It is not a slip up.
There are other people that want pierogies.
That's not an opinion. Go home, Alan. Okay, has he asked me to leave? Have you asked me to leave?
They have asked me to intervene, and I have a
I'm
situation.
I'm
I am asking you to take this conversation out of the public.
You want to do that?
If any of you want to continue this conversation with him,
and you can
we're
read
going to
it.
let you keep going.
Thank you.
Go home, wherever that is.
They said, go home wherever that is. Like, imagine complaining about the fact that you weren't served a pierogi and you're literally cheerleading on Israel, who is starving Palestinian people right now, but you are complaining because you were denied a pierogi. People are fighting back the best way that they can. And for that vendor, that was their way of fighting back. So I say, unleash the Kraken. Unleash the Kraken. Okay, we got one more story for you. This one is a good one. I think Katie Halper killed it, folks. I think she killed it. If you haven't done so, smash the like, folks. And we're going to head out with this story tonight. This is really good. Katie Halper has definitely unleashed the Kraken. She has definitely unleashed the Kraken. She was on Piers Morgan recently, and I think she really took this Prageru guy out. Let's go ahead and get into the first part of this discussion here. Check it out.
Shabbos is doing is kind of typical talking points. So a couple of things to remember is that Israel consistently lies and Israel's defenders consistently lie because they don't have the facts on the ground and they certainly don't have the moral argument. And I think it's really rich for Shabbos to suggest that someone like Peter Beinart is perhaps an anti-Semite or a self-loathing Jew. And that's also a trick.
I did not say that at all.
Yes, you did. You said that you take them as what they say, and just because they're Jewish, you're not going to say they're not anti-Semitic or self-loathing.
And I specifically said I am not using Peter as an example. I'm saying in general, I'm not going to assume that because someone's Jewish identity deflects criticism. So don't say that I called him an anti-Semite. I literally did it.
But you basically suggested that just because he's Jewish, he doesn't get a get out of jail free card, which is a fair enough argument. But the truth is that Jews like Peter Beinart are much less anti-Semitic than Jews who defend Israel, because when you are live streaming a genocide and saying that this is for the sake of Jewish people, you are putting all Jews at risk. I mean, let's table the fact that this is a very inhumane and unjust and immoral and illegal genocide. And that's not just me saying that. That's countless genocide experts. That's, Zionists who have been saying that. That's B'Tselem, the Israeli human rights organization, the Israeli Jewish human rights organization. B'Tselem says it's a genocide. Physicians for Human Rights says it's a genocide. All of these Israeli organizations say it's a genocide. But what we have to remember is that there's also a trick. In fact, there was a minister of Israel who said that this is the trick we play. When we talk to people, we bring up the Holocaust and we bring up anti-Semitism. And we do that whenever someone criticizes Israel. And this
big trick. That's right. They make it very clear that that is the trick. That is the goal. Do you guys notice the Prageru guy? He's sitting there crossing his arms like he is annoyed. That's the I'm annoyed pose.
This woman, Shalomit Aloni, was a minister of education in Israel. And so what we're going to see throughout this panel, I assume and I predict from watching past panels, is we're going to see a lot of lying, a lot of obfuscation, and a lot of claims that people are anti-Semitic or picking on Israel unfairly or self-loathing Jews. And you should just bear that in mind. And Shabbos, I just watched the panel with you and you lied through your teeth the entire time. You even said, fact check me on something. You said that Pierce asked you if the proportion of children killed was higher in Gaza than it was in other wars. And you said that it was as high in other wars. And you named the Syrian Civil War, Vietnam, and Korea. Unfortunately, the stats don't back you up. And the proportion of children killed in all of those wars was lower. I can go over the stats with you, but was lower than the proportion of children killed in Gaza. So we have an active genocide going on. It is actually illegal for the United States to support this genocide. It violates the Leahy Law. It violates the Foreign Assistance Act. It is a threat to every living person, basically. And of course, ironically, now I don't speak out because this has a dangerous effect on Jews. It does have a dangerous effect on Jews. I speak out because I believe that Palestinians are human beings with human rights. I also speak out because Israel doesn't get to speak for all Jews. But the irony is that for all the people like you who talk about Jewish safety, the irony is that you are making Jews less safe. Israel is making Jews less safe. AIPAC is making Jews less safe. The ADL is making Jews less safe. And you're engaging in the anti-Semitic trope of equating Jewishness with Zionism. Every time that you claim that all Jews have to be Zionists or that it's anti-Semitic to be anti-Zionist, you are leaning into that dual loyalty trope, which claims that all Jews are a monolith and we all support Israel. And again, when you're live streaming a genocide that the entire world sees and you're saying that this is for the sake of Jews, I don't know how that's good for the Jews.
Katie hit the nail on the head right there. I think that part is very important for people to hear because, honestly, I've already been seeing it too, where people are conflating the two. And she's right. What is happening is that the doubling down on the support for Israel from people like Shabbat, the dude who's posing like he's in an old school like R&B video, that dude, for people like him, they are actually making it worse because doubling down and all the racist rhetoric that we have seen from Israel or the defense of the racist rhetoric that we've seen, that doesn't make people like Israel more. That makes people dislike Israel more. People who already dislike them will dislike them more. People who did not dislike them may start to dislike them. And it's already going that way if you look at the numbers, the polls. Right? So people who may have been pro Israel, even like Marjorie Taylor Greene is starting to call it out now and say, whoa, this is genocide. What the hell is going on here? So the doubling down does not help Israel. And I've said this before. I don't think people are going to forget this. I think what has been done in Gaza and what is continuing to happen in Gaza and in the West Bank, I think Israel's vile, racist, disgusting, genocidal rhetoric and actions is not going to help Israel in the end. They are seen as the enemy. Most people look at you and see you as the enemy. So you can come and talk about Russia or Maduro, as people are bringing up now. The Trump administration is trying to draw your attention to let's go get Maduro. Let's go we'll give a $50 million bond for someone to tell us where Maduro is and capture him. That is a distraction. They are trying to turn you away from the genocide that's happening in the Middle East and turn your attention towards Maduro, who is not committing a genocide. So instead of arresting Benjamin Netanyahu, who should be arrested, they are trying to arrest Maduro. It's just another freaking distraction. But this is not helping Jewish people. It is not. And I said it before too. Someone even told me this a couple of days ago. They are even at the point now where they are afraid to have communication with someone who is that way. Because they're scared. And this is the thing they said, they're scared. Like, what if they flip the tables on me? And next thing you know, they start pointing fingers at me and start calling me anti-Semitic. And what am I supposed to do? The rabid Zionists, pro-Israel, genocidal, racist douchebags, they are making it so that people are starting to feel like they have to walk on eggshells around you. And when it gets to that point where people feel like they have to walk on eggshells around you, people are not trying to be around you, boo. People are not trying to be around you. So she is right. She is correct about that. Let's go on a little bit more here, and then we'll jump to the shushing part.
Okay. Benjamin Molam, let me bring you in here. It's actually very interesting to me to have 4 Jews debating this, because I think that's the way it should be actually at this stage, because I'm aware that in the Jewish community globally, there is, as Peter said, a lot of debate and argument and massive difference of opinion between families and friends. It's dividing a lot of people around the world in the Jewish community. My issue with what is happening in Gaza is it doesn't seem to be showing any evidence of Israel's original stated war aims being achieved. The hostages are not being released and haven't been since February, pre the blockade. Hamas have clearly not been defeated by any stretch of the imagination at all, and continue to taunt Israel with horrific videos of these hostages being treated in the most disgusting manner. Although I raised a point yesterday on X, and I wasn't trying to be, political about it. I wasn't trying to be anti-Semitic or anything else. I simply said it was interesting to me that Hamas put out footage that is accepted immediately as 100% credible, and everybody on the pro-Israeli side, rightly, because I think they are genuine videos, was raging about this. And they were horrific and disgusting, and Hamas are horrific and disgusting. But there's a completely different attitude towards the Gaza Health Ministry figures, which are released about casualties, even though, as Peter points out in his book, the Gaza Health Ministry actually includes names. Whereas if you ask any senior Israeli that I've interviewed, the Israeli ambassador to the UK, she knew exactly how many Hamas terrorists had been killed, but she had no idea and couldn't tell me how many civilians had been killed. They don't keep a record. And so, I was just curious. I was curious why the utter credulous reaction to awful videos, but utter incredulity to casualty numbers, when it would appear historically that the Gaza Health Ministry numbers tend generally to be pretty accurate and accepted by Israel after the event. Only now, since October the 7th, has everybody on the pro-Israeli side that I've had arguments with about this said, actually, none of it's true. You can't believe any of it. We know we've killed 30,000 terrorists. We've no idea how many civilians have died. None of that is credible to me. So sorry for the little rant there, but it's something that comes.
Yeah, I wanted you guys to hear that part because I thought that was interesting. But I just wanted to pause here because I wanted to show you that he still has his arms crossed. He looks like he's from one of the R&B videos. What's the one with him? He's like, girl, you know that time when you broke up with me? I heard about it. I just didn't call you because I had other things on my mind. What'd you do to me, girl? Come back, baby, come back. That's what he reminds me of with the arm cross. Is like, girl, color me bad. I was saying, he said a color me bad reject. Oh my God.
It took me a lot on X. And I just found that an interesting thing to watch in the last couple of days. But what is your reaction generally to the point Peter made about the increased threat he believes is now happening to Israelis and to Jewish people around the world as a result of the current war strategy of Netanyahu's government?
So allow me to begin by addressing your point about the difference between the video of Aviatar David and Ron Braslavsky and the numbers that come out from the Gaza Health Ministry. The video that was released, it was released by the Israeli government after they showed the family and analyzed it. And obviously there's not this difference between video evidence and numbers that come out from a Hamas health ministry that nobody really knows how it operates. And it's clear that they have a deliberate policy of starving the hostages. It's something that they've said, something that they've been assessed, something that you can see. There's no deliberate policy of starvation when it comes to Israel's policy vis-a-vis aid into Gaza.
So let's go ahead and debunk him, right? So first of all, guess what food the hostages eat? The hostages eat the same food that Hamas eats. Guess what food Hamas eats? The same food that the other Palestinians in Gaza eat. So whatever Israel allows to come in is what they eat. Whatever they allow to come in and they can actually get and they're not killed getting is what they eat. So see, this is why his statement doesn't make any sense. That's a bunch of BS. That's where this is going. That's why you run into this issue. That's the problem. What did they think? Did they think that Hamas had like this secret stash of like Twinkies and like fruit roll-ups like stashed away for a rainy day? Did they think that Hamas like had like this secret refrigerator that was different food than what the other Palestinians were getting in Gaza? What did they expect to happen? This was never really about the hostages in the beginning. Because if it was really about the hostages, I say this, when it was reported that they found out that they found the plans for this attack a year and a half before, why didn't they put any measures in place to prevent that from happening? The response from the IDF was that they didn't take those plans seriously. No, I call BS on that. They took them seriously. They let it happen because they wanted it to happen, because that would be their way to get rid of all of them and to take complete control and the rest of the land in Gaza. That's what they wanted to happen. If it was so much about those hostages, why did they break the ceasefires all the time? Every time there was a temporary ceasefire agreement, why did Israel continue to break it? Because it wasn't really about the hostages. Israel was willing to allow the hostages, to allow them to die and to take over all the land than they are to save them. That's really what this is about. So Katie comes back in, and this is the part I think that is going around on social media, and she unleashes the Kraken here. Check this out.
Katie, the last word to respond. Katie.
Well, it's really not difficult. Israel is obliged to follow international law and international humanitarian law. It violates it literally every day. It doesn't respect rules of proportionality, rules of distinction. I think it's really dangerous for Shabbos to try to say that the genocide in Israel is somehow related to Judaism. That's certainly not good for the Jews. I think that what you're describing is an ethno-state and ethno-supremacy. I don't want a state to be given rights because of what is said in the Torah. I don't think that's fair. I don't think you'd accept that if any other leader did it. And the truth is, this is a distraction. The important thing to know is that Israel is an apartheid state. It is committing genocide as we speak. It is starving people. What the United States needs to do for its own self-interest, is cut off all funding because it violates the Leahy Law, the Foreign Assistance Act. Also, you kept talking, Shabbos, about how popular, how supported Israel is. Actually, support for Israel is at a historic all-time low, lower than it's ever been since modern polling. And that's because they see what Israel's doing. Everyone sees it. They see the children with their arms blown off. They see the children who are getting amputations without anesthetic. And they see that Israel is also not just doing this, but celebrating. I mean, why are the IDF wearing the lingerie of the women who they ethnically cleanse? Why are they taking selfies of themselves in front of exploded universities and mosques? That is sick. And why do the majority of Israeli people actually support ethnic cleansing, not getting rid of Hamas? And also, no one mentioned the fact that Hamas has already agreed to give up political power. So if that's what this was about, then you would be negotiating. Israel has freed far more hostages through negotiation than they have through military actions. I believe it's 8. The ratio is around 8 to 140. But Israel has decided that the priority is not saving hostages. It's also not defeating Hamas, because everyone knows that Hamas has grown since October 7th, not decreased. Their priority is ethnically cleansing, creating a greater Israel, and killing Palestinians. That's their priority. And we know this because Netanyahu also said, Netanyahu said that if, let me just finish one sentence. Netanyahu said that if the hostages were released, he still would keep launching the war. So all the talking points about how Hamas could end this tomorrow if they just released the hostages is a lie.
Okay, I was going to leave it there, but
bam. I mean, what can you say? It's true, though. That's the thing. Like, Israel literally tells you what they are going to do. They say it out in the open. And that's what Netanyahu has said. He said, like, even if when they get all the hostages back, they're still going to continue to try to kill the people and take the land, because that's what they are. They're colonizers.
Given, Shabbos, you've been putting your finger up to speak in a very plaintive way for the last few minutes, I'll give you 20 seconds to respond.
Well, I could have just done the Annika Spear and just yell, but I thought this was more respectful. First of all, it's astounding that I can make a reasoned argument and the response is apartheid, genocide, settler colonialism. There's a theological...
Wait, those are facts. That's not a hysterical, emotional thing. It's been documented. No, don't shush me and don't make... What is this? Are you doing like an Italianism?
Please,
No. You're lying. You're lying. Apartheid is not... Oh, you're not going to do the Annika Spearian? Shut up. Apartheid is not an emotion. Apartheid has been proven by every credible human rights organization. Why does B'Tselem say there's apartheid? What's their ulterior motive? Are they a cabal of self-loathing Jews? Why do they say there's apartheid if there's not? Why
Great.
is
So as I
settler
was saying,
colonialism?
it's remarkable that I
what
can
did Jabotinsky say about Israel? He said natives always resist colonizers, and he was talking about Israel. It is a settler colonial project.
Okay.
It is a genocidal project,
Let
and that's why you can listen to
all right,
former
let
heads of
Shabos
Mossad who say it's genocide.
Okay,
Great.
let Shabos finish his point, and then we're going to wrap it up.
Again,
Shabos.
Yeah. We're going to drop the mic for Katie. You know, I hate it when people do that. I hate when people do the shh, shh, shh. It's so like, I feel like it's so condescending. I hate when people do that, right? So dude's mad because he got his ass handed to him. I noticed he finally unfolded his arms, but that's the thing. This is what they do. They try to tell you that, oh, if you mention apartheid, if you mention genocide, that's just your emotions. That's just an emotional feeling. It's not actually true. As if we don't have a precedent to look at. As if we don't have the precedent of South Africa to look at. That's why these people think we're dumb. As if we just can't go back and, oh yeah, what about apartheid South Africa? Yeah, we'll apply the same measure to you. You don't get a pass, right? So that's why this thing is driving me crazy. They feel like they act like there's no history for us to look at and go off of. The same way we had a problem with apartheid South Africa, we have a problem with apartheid Israel. And it's just crazy to me that he just feels like you can just tell people, shh, shh. You know what I mean? Katie killed it on this episode. I think the first time she went on there, they wouldn't let her speak as much, and she was going up against Alan Dershowitz, but she killed it on this episode. We do got to drop the beat for Katie. We haven't dropped the beat in a while, have we? Dropping the beat! Dance with me. Dance with me. Drop the beat. In the street. Woo! Great job there, Katie. Great job. I will see Katie not this weekend, but the next weekend. I believe she's going to be part of that panel as well. Looking forward to that in New Jersey at Icarus Fest. So I'll be sure to share that with you guys as well. But she came in and she unleashed the Kraken. And it is what it is, guys. It is what it is. Pushing back against the propaganda. All right, ladies and gents, Eric is going to close the show out because I'm looking at the time and I'm a couple minutes over my time. Eric, if you can, I think we still have a couple of super chats.
You got some chats, sure. Good deal. Yeah,
bye,
Katie
guys.
did the thing.
Have a good night.
All right, we'll let Sabby go on with her Sunday while let me hit this over here with that over there while I do a little closeout here. Yeah, that was good stuff. I was like putting in the chat like Katie was made for this kind of a fight. So huge kudos to her, dropping the beat and everything for her. Yeah, because you have to be like really like verbally like strong to do those shows, and you have to be able to make your points quick. Like I don't think I could do it, but you know, kudos to her and for just putting all those points out there and nailing it. All right, as we close out our show, let's see what we got from in some of the super chats. Some of them go back to the earlier stories. Let's see. Thanks for this one, Courtney Smith. Come on, Tyler Perry, and buy out BET. Yeah, it's like that. I was just when that BET owner was saying, you know, he was sorry about how it all went down. Like, you know, he was sorry, but you know, walked away with his $1 billion. So, you know, how sorry these owners, how really sorry are they, right? And thanks for the super chat, Juliet Meek. Tried earlier, but did not work. Growing up in the South, there was a saying, I will slap you into the middle of next week. Yeah, that's going back to the Marjorie Taylor Greene story. And yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one. It's, you know, we like some of the positions, you know, and you know, she's trying to get, Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying to get into this lane of riding this wave of righteous outrage against what's happening. And, you know, and I think our position, those of us who have, you know, always been outraged about what's happening in Gaza, is to say, you know, okay, we'll, you know, take it, but One, you could leave the genocidal party, with either arm of the duopoly, and you could form a coalition with everybody else who feels these ways. So let us know, MTG or AOC or Thomas Massey or any other Democrat whatnot, when you get started on leaving the uniparty and turning it into something real, let me know. Let us know, and then maybe we'll talk. Thanks for this one, Anita. We said, the only time I turn on my TV is if we are in the path of a hurricane here in South Carolina. Gotcha. Yep. And thanks, Golden Leopard. I told some people that sooner or later the anti-Semite card is going to get played out. Yep. And thanks for this one, Gene. He says, Deans, Indies, GOP, undecided, people all unite. And thanks for this generous super chat, Lee. Appreciate you. Lee says, is there any higher form of anti-Semitism than the genocide of the Semitic people of Palestine? It's not even a contextual framework from which a conversation can be had. Sad. Yep. Based comment, Lee. Thanks for that. And Roger, who's been a member for a good long 25 months, uses his 25-month chat to say, don't forget Rockfin Super Chat. Roger also says he's loving the new job. And he says, when they call us anti-Semitic, let's start making them prove they're Semites first. And yeah, speaking of which, with Roger, let's see what he's got out here on the Rockfins. Thanks for this tip comment on Rockfin, Roger. Roger says, what the professor just said is what I said last week, Sabrina. Zoran has a mandate. He will have sway through the power of the bully pulpit. His first year in office would be the same year he's running for re-election. However, his leverage disappears after the primary in June and goes back to her, since most likely she won't have a lefty independent challenger in the general election. And thanks for this one, Roger. Sab, they don't need to form their own party. They just need to register Indy. The only one out of them that might have an issue is AOC. Why? Because unlike New York State, oops, sorry, I got to get this scrolling right here. All right. Rashida deleted it. All right. They don't need to write. The only one of them might have an issue with AOC because, unlike New York State, the states of Georgia, Minnesota, and Michigan, that MTG, Rashida Tlaib, and Omar are from, 3 of the 20 states voters don't register under a party. Still trying to figure out how the politicians get to have a party, but default, everyone's an independent. All right. Thanks for those, Roger. Get this placed right here. Yeah. And, and in closing here, I'll just say, nothing's really going to change until we really form a movement behind clear demands. We want to be using MCDS, money, corruption, demand solutions, for our analysis of all these things. That's what 11 Demands is all about. So I encourage everyone to check that out. And we're going to continue talking about that. You can see it at 11demands.org. And what that's all about. I encourage everyone to do that. And the last thing I'm going to say is join us at Icarus Fest. Let me bring up that website. So we're already excited about that coming up. An all-day event. It's going to be Gray Zone Day at the Icarus Fest. This is August 23rd, the Williams Center in Rutherford, New Jersey. There's going to be Jimmy Dore doing a comedy show. He's the headliner. Max Blumenthal is really, I wouldn't say running the whole thing, but it's Gray Zone Day, so Max and Aaron, of course, are huge on it. They recently added Judge Napolitano, and then we have we just saw and appreciated Katie Halper, who's going to be in there. Anya Parenpill, the one and only Sabs, Wyatt Reed, Jeremy Lafredo, and Kit Clarenberg, who are all great Gray Zone correspondents. They'll be there. Christian Parentes, major figure, and they got a little business being covered up by their tickets on sale banner, but that's Thaddeus Russell, who I believe is one of the organizers. So hope to see you all there. Corey and I will be there. And I'll also be working on trying to get some live stream going. I'm sure we'll figure something out. So you'll be seeing that. So yeah, hope to see you all there August 23rd. Check it out at IcarusFest.com. And I think that is it for the Sabby show today. Sabby will be live next on Tuesday at 7 p.m. Hope to see you all. Hope you all see you all then. And let me find our right asset here to play us out. And in the meantime, have a good night and keep up the fight. We'll see you next time. Thanks.